Narcissists view themselves as exceptional, superior, and deserving of admiration and praise at all times. They have a fragile sense of self-worth that depends heavily on external validation. When you interact with a narcissist, they expect you to cater to this inflated sense of self, whether you realize it or not. They crave constant attention and often believe that they are entitled to special treatment. So, when you unintentionally hurt them, or even deliberately challenge their behavior, it's not taken as a normal exchange of emotions or feedback. To a narcissist, it's an attack, a betrayal, a deeply personal wound to their inflated self-image. Now, how does a narcissist experience pain? Well, unlike most people who might experience a range of emotions like sadness, disappointment, or frustration, a narcissist experiences something much more intense and personal. For them, any perceived slight or criticism cuts straight to their fragile ego, triggering a strong emotional reaction. This is where things get interesting because their pain isn't just emotional discomfort, it feels, to them, like a full-blown attack on their very existence. They're not just hurt, they're wounded, often to the point of rage or deep-seated resentment. It's important to understand that the pain they describe is out of proportion to the situation. To you, it might seem like a simple disagreement or a momentary misunderstanding, but to them, it's nothing short of a catastrophic blow. So, when they describe their pain, it often sounds exaggerated, grandiose, and, more often than not, twisted into a narrative where they are the ultimate victim. Narcissists will frequently describe their pain as though you've committed some unforgivable act. They might accuse you of betrayal or abandonment, even if what happened was entirely normal in a healthy relationship, like setting a boundary or expressing a different opinion. In their world, your action is seen as a direct challenge to their superiority. And they describe it in dramatic terms that are designed to make you feel guilty, confused, and responsible for their emotional state. A common tactic they use is to frame their pain in terms that make it seem like they are the ones who have been gravely wronged. This is where the narcissist's manipulation comes into play. They'll often say things like, "I can't believe you would do this to me," or "After everything I've done for you, how could you hurt me like this?" Notice how, in these statements, the focus is entirely on them. There's no room for acknowledging your feelings or your side of the situation. Instead, they make it about how deeply you've wounded them and how undeserving they are of such treatment. This allows them to shift the blame onto you, making it seem like they are the ones who are suffering at your hands, regardless of the truth of the situation. Another thing to note is how narcissists will often describe their pain as being a result of your failure to meet their expectations. Narcissists have a very rigid and self-centered view of relationships. They expect others to constantly cater to their needs, validate their sense of importance, and essentially revolve their lives around them. So, when you fail to do that, whether by asserting your own needs, questioning their behavior, or not giving them the attention they feel they deserve, they interpret it as a personal affront. And when they describe their pain, it's often filled with accusations about how you've let them down or failed them in some way. It's never about the situation being a misunderstanding or a mutual conflict. It's always framed as you being the one who has caused their suffering by not living up to their expectations. For example, let's say you've set a boundary with a narcissist. Perhaps you've told them that you need more space or that you don't appreciate how they've been speaking to you. A healthy person might feel hurt initially but would hopefully be able to process that emotion and understand that you're setting boundaries for your well-being. A narcissist, on the other hand, will describe that boundary as a betrayal. They'll say things like, "How could you turn your back on me like this?" Or "I thought you cared about me, but clearly, you don't if you're going to treat me this way." They take your boundary setting as an attack on their character and will describe their pain in a way that not only exaggerates the situation but also shifts the blame entirely onto you. In their mind, they are the victim of your selfishness, and they will make sure you know just how much you've hurt them by doing something as simple as asserting your own needs. Narcissists are also notorious for describing their pain in a way that distorts reality. This is where gaslighting often comes into play. When you've hurt a narcissist, they will frequently twist the facts of the situation to make it seem like you've done something far worse than what actually happened. They'll claim that you've been cruel, uncaring, or intentionally harmful, even if what you did was entirely reasonable or necessary for your own well-being. In their retelling of the events, they will often make themselves out to be the innocent party who has been wronged by your supposedly malicious actions. This can leave you questioning your own memory of the situation, wondering if perhaps you did do something wrong, even when you know you didn't. This distortion of reality is a key part of how narcissists describe their pain, by making it seem like they are the helpless victim in a scenario where they were actually the one in control. And then there's the matter of narcissistic rage. Narcissists don't just describe their pain in passive, victimized terms. Sometimes, they lash out in extreme anger. When a narcissist feels hurt, their response can often swing to the opposite extreme, where they describe their pain through aggressive and vengeful behavior. They might say things like, "You'll regret ever doing this to me," or "You don't know who you're messing with." In these instances, their pain is described not as something that makes them vulnerable but as something that justifies retaliation. They feel entitled to strike back, to make you feel as small and powerless as they do in that moment. And make no mistake, this isn't just about lashing out. It's about regaining control and dominance over you. Their pain becomes a weapon, a reason to exact revenge, and they will make sure you know how deeply they feel justified in hurting you back. Narcissists also have a unique way of describing their pain in public versus private settings. In private, they might direct all their pain and anger at you personally. But in public, they often shift into full victim mode. They'll describe their pain to others in a way that garners sympathy and makes them appear blameless. They might tell friends, family, or even colleagues that you've treated them horribly, painting a picture of themselves as the innocent party who was just trying to be kind and supportive. In this way, they seek validation from others, using their pain as a tool to manipulate the narrative in their favor. This public display of victimhood serves to reinforce their image of being the one who was wronged, while simultaneously discrediting you. It's also important to recognize that narcissists don't just describe their pain in emotional terms. They often try to frame their pain in moral terms as well, casting you as someone who has not only hurt them emotionally but also violated some moral code. They might say things like, "How could you do this to someone who has always been there for you?" Or "I would never treat you the way you've treated me." In these statements, they position themselves as morally superior, someone who has been unfairly wronged by your lack of loyalty, empathy, or decency. They describe their pain as not just personal, but as evidence that you are a fundamentally flawed or bad person. This moral framing is a way for them to justify their anger and to further manipulate you into feeling guilty and responsible for their pain. Ultimately, when a narcissist feels you've hurt them, how they describe their pain is all about control. It's not about genuine vulnerability or emotional openness. It's about using their pain as a way to manipulate, control, and dominate the narrative. They describe their pain in ways that exaggerate the offense, distort reality, and cast you as the villain, all while ensuring that they come across as the wounded party who deserves sympathy, attention, and perhaps even revenge. Their descriptions of pain are not rooted in reality but in their desperate need to protect their fragile ego and maintain their sense of superiority.